The views and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
To the Mind, Body, and Spirit radio show on this lovely, lovely, wealthy Wednesday night. It is October the 11th. Namaste, Featherlight. Namaste, Scotty. And namaste to all of you that are tuned in. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Namaste, namaste. Black Rose, and namaste to Scotty. And namaste to all our listeners.
Yes, we missed you last week, Featherlight. You know, I could not present the love, the body, and the breathing as you do. So I know our listeners were like, what in the world? I can't get my breathing on. I can't get my breathing on with her because she don't know what she doing. She don't know what she doing. So I was like, well, you just have to wait until next week. Featherlight will be back, and she is back with us. We were supposed to have another guest on with us tonight, spoken word artist William Chancellor, but he had an unexpected death in the family. So we want to send out our condolences to him, and he will return with us. We'll reschedule him, so he will come on and share some of his powerful spoken word with us. So we'll let you guys know when he will return, but we want to welcome you in tonight. And tonight, let me share a quote before we get started into our topic. How you doing, Scotty? Hope you are well there in North Kakalaki.
Greetings, ladies, and yes, we did miss you last week, Featherlight. I tried to fill in a little bit so she wouldn't lose her voice, but I could never replace you.
Oh, thank you.
He did. He tried his best to assist. He really did, I have to say. Thank you so much, Scotty. Thank you, because I tell you, I missed you. I did. I missed you. Let me share a quote. This is a quote from the Honorable Baba Dick Gregory, whose birthday is tomorrow. This is a quote. I wouldn't mind paying taxes if I knew they were going to a friendly country. I wouldn't mind paying taxes if I knew they were going to a friendly country. The Honorable Baba Dick Gregory. You know, Baba Dick Gregory, he used to always say, his wife would say, oh, we got this bill from Sears and Roebuck. When you going to pay it? And he would say, I'm not paying that bill. Oh, he would always talk about that. So I just used to think that was always hilarious, hearing him talking about how he's not going to pay a bill and not going to do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
They'll go unpaid. They will go unpaid.
Isn't it just like some black folks? It's just like some black folks. No, y'all don't want to pay your bills. No, I'm just kidding. We pay our bills. We do pay our bills. We pay those that matter, rent, light, phone.
Right.
Rent, light, phone. Yes. Yeah.
You got to
Make sure you,
so you plug in the phone.
Yes, indeed. Look, I have a story. I remember a long time ago when I was like Baba D. Gregory and I didn't want to pay some bills. I would just forget. I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I was so irresponsible. I would go shopping, baby. I would go shopping, buy up all kind of stuff, and then be like, oh, darn, I need to pay my phone bill. So horrible. So horrible. So I remember one time, full disclosure, I let my phone get cut off, and I remember one of my friends came over, and he said, he was just a guy friend, and he said, now, let me tell you something. If you don't do nothing else, you pay your phone bill. Because, see, you can dial in the dark and ask somebody for some money. I said, you know what, that makes sense. So you can dial in the dark and beg for some money from somebody, but shoot, you don't have your phone. You can't even call anybody and ask them for any money. So you can pay your light bill and this bill and that bill. So, yeah, anyway, so your Baba Dick Gregory birthday is tomorrow. He was born October 12th, 1932 in St. Louis, Missouri, and Missouri. I like to call it St. Louis, Missouri, St. Missouri. And, you know, he transitioned August 19th, 2017 at Sibley Memorial Hospital in Washington, D.C. Some of his books were From the Back of the Bus, Nigger, an autobiography, What's Happening, The Shadow That Scares Me, Write Me In, No More Lies. I think that's the one that I had him autograph, No More Lies, The Myth and Reality of American History, Dick Gregory's Political Primer, Dick Gregory's Natural Diet for Folks Who Eat, Cooking with Mother Nature. Speaking of people, natural diet, speaking of natural diet, I was speaking with this lady today, and we were talking about vegetarian diet and lifestyle, and she was telling me that she's been a vegetarian. Well, she's more so of a pescatarian because she does eat a little fish. But she said that after watching the Netflix documentary, What the Health, she is also eliminating fish from her diet as well. I tell you that What the Health film, and we've mentioned this before, if you have not seen that, if you have not viewed that, watch that. I'm not trying to encourage people to not eat meat, because if you want to eat meat, then that's on you. But just to do the research, there's so many hormones and chemicals in food now. You just have to be careful. And even with the fruits and vegetables, so many of the fruits and vegetables are GMO. It's so difficult to find a watermelon with seeds. It's so difficult to find fruits and vegetables that taste like fruits and grapes. I mean, it's so you have to almost hunt down grapes with seeds in them now. I don't want any seeds of GMO grapes that they grew up in a lab or something with some Monsanto seeds and all that crap. I want some real grapes. Give me the seeds. I know how to spit them out. So
I know how to spit them out. I grew up
spitting them out. Yeah. We grew up spitting out the seeds. That's okay. It's not an inconvenience for me. I'll take the seeds. Thank you very much. Shoot. I'm always messing with something. Goodness gracious. All right. You have a quote for us, Featherlight?
Yes, I do. I have 2 lion quotes. I'm a lion. Okay.
Hear me
This
roar.
is an African. Yes. You don't want to hear me roar? Okay. When the lion decides to tell his story, the hunter ceases to be the hero. Repeat that. My favorite. When the lion decides to tell his story, the hunter ceases to be the hero. Another version of that is, add my little two pennies. If the lion does not tell his story, the hunter will. So if you don't tell your story, what happens? And somebody else tells their version of what happened. How do you think they're going to make the story end? They're going to be the hero. So that is why we, as people of color, African descent, should tell our own story. And that's why we have Black Talk Radio Network, because we are telling our story, our perspective. So I like that. I've always liked that. Always liked that. We have a book that it's thick as I don't know what, and it says, "The Lies Your Teacher Told." It's full of lies that we were taught in school because it's from somebody else's perspective. They're telling their side of the story about us. So that's my quote. One of them.
Right.
Good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
you for sharing. I love that quote. I love that quote. You know I love that quote because it's about us telling our story, and I'm such a promoter of telling the story, telling the true story, and us learning the truth. You know, it's just unfortunate that even if you teach your children the truth, then when they enter the institution of school, the educational institution, if they try to challenge these teachers, then they're reprimanded and suspended and pulled out of class, sent to the office because they know the truth. And I think that is just so unfortunate. It's disheartening to the children because deep down inside, just like I know when I was in school, and so many young children, especially black children, they're disenchanted with the educational process because they're left out of the story. We have always been taught about our history from enslavement, nothing about our ancient history, nothing about our accomplishments, our contributions to civilization. And so it affects your self-esteem, your personality. It affects the way that you learn. It affects the way that you learn because you essentially made a young child, feel that they are worthless, and the people that they come from are worthless. So how do you expect a child to grow from that when you're already chopping them off at inception? So it's so troublesome, and that's why I'm a promoter of, if you cannot homeschool, then advocate for your school to teach children properly, or just teach your children at home. Be involved. And I know it's difficult for parents because some parents work in many hours or 2 and 3 jobs. So it's very, very difficult. But we have to figure out a way. Just like people figured out a way to make it to work during the Montgomery bus boycott, 361 days. So, hey, listen, we have to figure it out. Just like people are figuring it out now, we have to figure it out. You figuring out your life now? We have to figure it out. We have to figure out how to educate our children. One thing that I learned from watching, I love HGTV, all of these home shows, and one thing I learned from some of these home shows and watching people when they're selecting neighborhoods and cities that they choose to purchase a home in, you have some people that will purposely move to a particular neighborhood or a city or a state just so that their children can have a proper education. And that's how much emphasis some people will place on their children having a proper education, because I realized this years ago. It's a vicious cycle. If you live in an impoverished neighborhood, then you go to an impoverished school that doesn't receive the proper amount of tax dollars. Then, therefore, when you graduate from school, if you're able to graduate from school, then you're already like behind in the race because you don't have the education. You have to compete against people who have had this proper education, where the school prepared them for this, prepared them for that career, or this career, and so you're already behind when you begin to compete for college placement. Then if you don't have that proper college education, then you have to compete with those that are more prepared for jobs. So it's just a vicious cycle, and then it puts you right back in an impoverished neighborhood because, you don't have a decent job. So it's just a vicious cycle. So we really, 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 really have to understand how important education is, how important it is to know who you are and to have the best schooling possible so that you can grow into being the person that you came here to be, live your purpose. And that's what we always talk about here at the Mind, Body, and Spirit radio show, living your purpose, stepping into your purpose. So thank you so much for that quote, Featherlight. Yay, you. Yay, you, Featherlight.
Snap, snap.
So, yep, snap, snap. So tonight we're talking about Black identity extremists, Black empowerment, and the NFL protests that are taking place, children protesting in school, and a little spirit talk as well. You know, we just want to talk about life and things that's going on, what you feel. So this is an open dialogue on a variety of topics. You may have seen in some of the social media and news reports about this new BIE, Black Identity Extremist. So if you're all about Black empowerment or promoting anything Black, then you're considered an extremist. And I think that is very similar to COINTELPRO actions that many people experienced during the 50s and 60s. So this is really, really dangerous and scary that now this has resurfaced. The FBI supposedly have written a report about Black identity extremists. And I noticed, and I showed this to you, Featherlight, when I was trying to log on to my tablet over the weekend, I noticed that I was disconnected from the Wi-Fi. And so when I tried to reconnect to the Wi-Fi, I could see FBI surveillance van in my Wi-Fi. And I was like, what the heck is FBI surveillance van doing in my Wi-Fi? So, I mean, I don't know. Are you tapping into my Wi-Fi? You listening in on my calls and computer? I mean, what's the deal? That just doesn't make any sense. I'm just here living. Hey, I'm just trying to live. Just let me live. Okay, yes. I'm not trying to organize a march or anything like that. But I am all about empowerment. Yeah, most definitely. Now, if you want to call me an extremist, because I feel that we need to have decent jobs and be business owners and live our dreams. If that's an extremist, but these people can have tiki torch marches and they're not extremists. Oh God, give me a break. So we want to hear from you. Is this a new form of COINTELPRO? Is your social media content identified as menacing? So people, be careful about your social media content. I mentioned last week that there was this person that I spoke with. His HR department was contacted as he posted something on his Facebook page, and so someone tracked him down to the organization that he is employed through, and nothing has happened thus far because I followed up with him today. But we just really, really have to be very, very cautious of what we're posting, especially if you have your place of employment. I always tell people you should have multiple social media sites. If you work for some type of company or organization where people can track. See, I don't put all that crap on mine social media. You don't need to know where I work, okay? You don't need to know any of that stuff about me. If those who know me, they know what I'm doing. So just a word to the wise. I tell these young people, and don't put all of that stuff when you drinking. You got your little Ciroc vodka and all of this crap. Don't put all that stuff on social media. People monitor your social media. Yeah, you're mad at your boyfriend, girlfriend, so you're going off on them, and come on. That's
what you gonna do? Ride by the house and all that mess.
Arguing with his girlfriend. Oh, goodness gracious. So just watch yourself, people. Be very, very careful in these precarious times. So tonight for our African Spirit segment, we will honor Queen Tiye, or some people say Queen T. We will honor Queen Tiye tonight, so be sure to tune in.
And Mind, Body, and Spirit responds to your letters about life, your spiritual journey, health, relationships, dating, career questions, love, sex, etc. in the Ask Mind, Body, Spirit segment. So you can send your letters to Mind, Body, Spirit Radio Show at gmail.com. That's Mind, Body, Spirit Radio Show at gmail.com. Listen in for hot news, topics, and more. 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, or you can log on to blacktalkradionetwork.com to hear the show or call in to speak at 866-510-9025 and join in the enriching discussions that always take place on the Mind, Body, and Spirit show. And don't miss out on our tips for Love the Body and our pranayama breathing session to relax and release at the end of the show. So stay tuned to the very end.
Yes. So 866-510-9025 is the number to dial if you would like to join in the conversation tonight or any night for that matter. We have some hot topics to touch on tonight. As usual, I love my hot topics. I just love to just keep up with what's going on and share the news, because radio is theater of the mind, and some people tune in to radio because, like, I don't have cable. People know I don't have cable, so I have to read a lot of my news, and I'm glad I don't have cable. I saved that couple of $100. And so I read a lot of my news, and so I like to share the hot topics with people that may be like myself. Maybe they just read their news. They don't have cable or they don't tune in to television news, and so they listen to the radio or go on social media for their news. So tonight I want to share a few stories. I came across this story about Jay Morris. He's a real estate mogul in Atlanta, and he also teaches, I need to research him some more, but he teaches these corner class, what he calls corner class series. So he actually takes a flipboard out on the corner, and he teaches people about how to invest in real estate. And he also travels around the country teaching people about investing in real estate. He oversees $10 million in assets of real estate. So what happened with this with Jay Morris and his partner? I think her name is Ernestine. Beautiful young couple. They call themselves Young Malcolm and Young Betty. I said, all right now, okay, you better say that. Yeah. So they call themselves Young Malcolm and Young Betty. So he took his employees, his staff, out for lunch after a meeting, and they went to Houston's restaurant in Buckhead, Atlanta. And anybody that's familiar with Atlanta, you're familiar with Buckhead. You may be familiar with Buckhead. I'm sure you are familiar with Buckhead. Buckhead is like an affluent area of the Atlanta, Georgia area. So they went to this Houston's restaurant, and they initially entered with a party of, I believe, 6 or 7 people. And so the restaurant told them, this party, Jay Morris's party, that they could not be seated because they were a party of 7. So, of course, they began to question why couldn't they be seated. And then finally they just said, okay, fine, we'll split up the party. 4 of us will sit over here and 3 will sit over there. And so the manager continued, or maybe it was the hostess, and then she went to retrieve maybe an assistant manager or something like that. This is all on social media. People probably have seen this, but I'm just going to share this story for those that may not be familiar. And also just so people can call in and share their thoughts if you would like, or email us or join us in the chat room. So even after this party said, okay, we're willing to split our group, they were still refused seating. So they continued back and forth with the Houston's employees for about 30 minutes. It seems like, I believe it's about 30 minutes on this little video that they're just going back and forth about why they cannot be seated, even if they've split up. And so the Houston's restaurant employees kept saying, well, no, we still can't seat you because you initially came in with the party of 7, so we know that y'all are still a group of 7, which made no sense at all. So this is why they kept arguing with them about why are you discriminating against us? Mm-hmm. And so even after the constant explanations of why they couldn't be seated, and the parties telling them, yes, we should be able to be seated, we have disassociated ourselves as a group, and you're still denying us seating in this restaurant. So, of course, eventually, Jay Morris's party was asked to leave. The police were called, and they smirked. And one of the people that continued to argue with them was a black lady. And I think there were like 3 black women that actually came out to argue with them, and then there were a couple other people that came out asking them to lower their voices, of course, and all of that. And so the party left. All right, so mind you, they're in Atlanta with a lot of black celebrities. So come to find out, this young lady, I think she's on one of those hip-hop Atlanta shows or something like that. Then she began to post and speak about how she, too, was denied seating in Houston. And sometimes they will ask people to leave if they're texting on their phone. Or
Are you
can't
serious?
come in. Yes.
Wow.
Telling people that they have to leave if they're texting on their phones, if they have maybe torn jeans or maybe a hat. And so their policy stated that they may not be able to accommodate a party of 6 or 7, may not. But then people began to, after Jay Morris posted on his social media that they were denied seating because they were a party of 6 or 7, people began to post pictures of them at Houston, of themselves at Houston in parties of 7, or showing other pictures of people in parties of 6 or 7. So, Jay Morris, along with rapper turned activist Tiye, they organized like a protest outside of some of the Houston's restaurants. I think it was the Houston's Buckhead and the Houston's Lenox Mall, and they were actually able to shut down Houston's restaurants for 2 days. When people began to pull into the Houston's restaurant, into Valet Park, you had protesters out there saying, don't go in, they've discriminated against us, they wouldn't seat us, they tell us we can't text on our phones, we can't come in with a hat, but then you'll see the white guy come in with a hat or somebody else come in with a hat. And so they just basically want to discriminate against certain people. So I want to commend these young people for standing up, and not just standing up. Jay Morris is actually going to sue Houston. He's taking legal action. Let me just say he's taking legal action. That's what he stated. So because he said, y'all got the right one, not the wrong one, but the right one.
Right.
Because they didn't know that not only is he this corner class series street teacher, but he's actually a businessman in Atlanta with connections. And they also, like I said, have Tiye along with them joining in the protest. And so I just want to, hey, let me put my hands together for these young folks. Yeah. Get down with the get down, baby. Get down with the get down, baby. It is, as we used to say, on and popping. On and popping. I am right now living my dream because I have always said, and I will continue to say this, I'll be so glad when black folks wake up. And I am so glad to see people waking up and standing up, kneeling, speaking out, doing whatever they can do to take action and not continue to be oppressed, because that's what this is. This is absolute oppression. And so I am just thrilled. And if you want to call me a black identity extremist, because I am thrilled that people are standing up against oppression, the same thing that the same reason why this country was formed, to fight against oppression. Please, you call me what you want to call me. Okay, because when these people that were sent over here to take over this land, when they felt like they were being mistreated and oppressed and having to make everything and then send it back over to Britain, and then Britain sent it back over here and they were taxed on it, they stood up and fought against that. So why can't we stand up and fight against oppression? And I think that it's sinful and a shame, and it's insane and obscene that we are still having to protest for the same thing that our grandparents and great-grandparents were protesting against, our ancestors were protesting against and fighting against. It's an absolute shame that these NFL players are having to continue to protest, and we as black people are continuing to protest about the same exact racial oppression that Carlos Smith, Tommy Smith and Carlos Smith and Tommy, Jesus, now I always get their names mixed up, but Carlos and Tommy, what they protested against at the 1968 Olympics when they stood barefoot with their fist in the air. So here we are in 2017, was it John Carlos and Tommy Smith? I believe that's their name. The same thing that they were protesting against. We're in 2017. How do you think that makes children feel when they see that we're still fighting what Dr. King died for, what Medgar Evers died for, with so many people, Malcolm X? We can just go on and on down the line. All of these unsung heroes, people that were fighting against oppression, fighting for voting rights, we're still fighting that same fight. And so for these people to sit here and try to hijack this and twist this protest around to, oh, y'all disrespecting the flag, y'all disrespecting the anthem. You're disrespecting us. It's a disrespect that you care nothing about people being shot down and killed in the street. The young man was killed, I think in Seattle. Police shot and killed him. And probably somebody got shot and killed yesterday, and I just don't know about it. It hadn't hit social media. So this is happening on a continuous basis. So it's a disrespect to us that you care nothing about the lives of people. Now, I was listening to Jesse Jackson, and he was speaking about how about 86% of the players, these athletes, are black. And you know how Jesse Jackson always know how to say something. He said they've grown from picking cotton to picking balls, but they really haven't grown. And so, you know, when you think about that, yes, they're millionaires, and I applaud these young men for living their dreams and obtaining this wealth. But it's sad that they're being treated the way that they're being treated, told that they can't do this and they can't do that. I mean, how would you feel if you were a millionaire and somebody's still trying to tell you what you can't do and what you, I don't want you to kneel, and if you do this and then you can't play, I'm going to bench you, like Jerry Jones. I need to call my dad because, you know, he's a big Cowboys fan. So I need to call him and ask him what are his thoughts. I think he'll probably say something like, well, they need to just go on and play. I don't know. I don't know. So many black people. You know, so many black people waking up these days, so he may have a different spin on it. I'm not sure, but I meant to call him to get a comment from him before we went on air, but I was listening to some more reports about this NFL protest.
The two are Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Black Rose.
Yep, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, that's right. Tommy Smith and John Carlos. Power to them. And, you know, and after they protested, after they stood there in that protest, you know, these two Olympic winners basically were ostracized. They were disenfranchised. They weren't held up as Olympic winners. They went back out into society, and couldn't even be honored properly. They weren't even honored properly. So they received backlash for their protest.
You did.
The exact same thing is happening to Colin Kaepernick right now. So what does that say about progress and growth in your post-racial society? It's ridiculous. I mean, you know what? This country ought to be embarrassed. I mean, it's shameful to me that in 1968 these two brothers were protesting, and then here we are. What you say, Scotty? I'm an extremist. Yeah, I read your report. I'm going to share that. I'm going to share that online too. Scotty said you're an extremist because you. Go ahead on.
They were suspended from the U.S. team, and they received death threats.
Yeah, they did receive death threats. They certainly did. Scotty said you're an extremist because you host a radio program on that BIE radio network called Black Talk Radio Network. Yes, and the darn FBI sitting all up in my Wi-Fi, Scotty. That's right, because I'm communicating with you black extremist. You darn black extremist, you, Scotty, you black extremist. Doggone
get me in trouble.
FBI. Yeah, get me all in trouble. That darn FBI all up in my Wi-Fi. I'm like, what the hell the FBI man doing surveilling my Wi-Fi? Shoot. My goodness, what the heck going on here? My goodness. My goodness. So, Mike Ditka, I think he was the coach of the Bears. Was he the coach of the Bears, Scotty? Mike Ditka, he made his little comments about if they don't want to stand for the anthem and all of this, then they should try to go to another country and play, because they're not going to be able to go to another country and play. And if you don't want to respect our flag and our country, then adios. He was like, adios. Okay, all right then, Mike Ditka, whatever, because like people have been stating, yes, Chicago Bears, thanks. Thanks, Otis. Thanks, Scotty. Chicago Bears. You guys remember when the Chicago Bears had that little Hollywood shuffle or whatever it was, the Bears shuffle, some stuff. So Mike Ditka, he was pretty popular and well-liked and all that, but I tell you, when it comes down to some of these social issues, boy, these people will show their colors. Oh, they will show their colors.
Yes, they will.
So I wonder, could you have won those games without those black players? And that's what people are speaking about. With most of these teams being comprised of black players, I mean, what if all of these black players just decide that they will sit? Oh, yeah, that's right. He said that oppression has not existed in the U.S. for 100 years. Well, first of all, Mike Ditka, you live in a completely different world, and that's what I'm understanding about some of these people. They live in their own little silos, so they don't experience the terrorism that we experience when we're driving down the street or walking down the street. You live in a completely different world. As I said before, some people, yes.
Hey, this is Scotty. Greetings again. Look, Mike Ditka was like 25 years old around that age, probably just getting out of college, possibly going to the NFL when Martin Luther King was murdered, when Malcolm X was murdered, when they was hitting little black boys and girls with fire hoses and sicking dogs on them. Mike Ditka was in his 20s, in his early to mid 20s, so he ain't 100 years old. So what? He didn't recognize that as oppression. Now so he knew about this. He saw this. He's witnessing this. So people were pointing out the absurdity of his comment. 100 years ago was what, 1917 or 1907? I don't know. Black people wasn't even allowed to vote and was being lynched.
Right. Lynchings were very high during that time, during that period. The late from 1892 up until the early 1900s, lynchings were happening 1 to 2 a day, just like killings, just like police killings here now. So, yeah, what he's saying is completely absurd. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's very insensitive. I totally agree. And so for him to say, to make those comments, you know, I get it. I get it. Like I said, you don't live in our world. You're not terrorized on the streets. You live a completely different life than what we live. Some of these athletes have lived a sheltered life, even though they've been pulled over by the cops, some of them and all that, just like Michael Bennett, and many others. But they still have had somewhat of a sheltered life because they've been star players. But they, too, know what this oppression is like. They have family members that have been oppressed and pulled over. They know what oppression is like. Some of them are very conscious. They know what's going on. So that is why these people are standing up and kneeling, because of this systematic oppression. This has nothing to do with disrespecting a flag or disrespecting an anthem that we shouldn't even have to respect in the first darn place. That anthem means absolutely nothing to us. In fact, I think that, okay, here you go. Here's another idea. Since they don't like us kneeling, how about when that national anthem starts to play, they start singing the black national anthem? How about that? Go on and stand up and just sing the black national anthem. They'll have a problem with that.
Right.
So, I mean,
and the
that's what we do.
And if you really want to talk about the national anthem, if you want to really throw that in, I mean, look at the third stanza that they, really kind of gloss over, don't even say anymore. But it's really talking about the murder of black slaves who ran off to join the war with the British, because the British offered them freedom if they came over to their side. And so the Americans, specifically Francis Scott Key, who was a racist and who owned slaves in the first place, district attorney, who just really did not like black people in the first place, they were very upset with the blacks who ran off and joined the war with the British. And so they said, your blood will be washed up, you slaves, you Highland slaves, da 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 da. All that is in the Star Spangled Banner. I mean, if you want to throw that in, if you want to just say that that's what you're protesting about, which it's not about that. And the military, I mean, hey, the military does not own the flag. Why is every time you talk about the flag, the military doesn't own the flag. It's not their flag. Some military people don't even salute that. Salute for the anthem. So it's not about disrespecting the flag or the anthem. And we talked about this previously, how the flag is disrespected when you have those 4th of July paper plates with the flag on it, okay? So, and all of that. So it's not about disrespecting the flag. There was also a video circulating around after the Astros win, this Astros baseball team here in Houston. This guy had on some flag underwear, and they were saluting and popping the champagne on him and all of this. And so people were like, so is this too considered disrespecting the flag? I wonder what are your thoughts, right? So, if people don't want these football players to kneel, I mean, hey, I'm agreeing with change it up. When the national anthem starts playing, hey, maybe somebody starts singing, hey, lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Oh, God, they would have a fit. They would have a fit. I mean, they would have a fit, yes. Okay, look, you stand for your anthem, and we'll stand for our anthem. How about that? Because we live in these two different worlds, so you stand for your anthem, I'll stand for mine. Okay? Let's
Black
do it
Rose,
like that then.
Black Rose, we need to start a internet campaign on that. Dueling anthems. So we need to get that message out to the people. If you're going to go to these places and that's what's taking place, do see if you can drown out those singing a slaver's anthem with a true song of freedom and liberty.
Right.
You like that idea?
Yeah.
You like that idea, Scotty? You like that idea?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as a rolling sea. Here we go. Sing the song of the patriots of the precious waters. Sing the song full of the hope that the present has brought us. They see the rising of a steady God. Let us march on till victory
is one.
Power to the people. That's right. That's how we handle that. That's how we handle that. Yeah, we're gonna start singing, lift every voice and sing, baby. Doggone it. We got something for you. Don't play with us, baby. We organize the Montgomery Boys Boycott, and don't think we can't organize anymore. Hey, in Memphis, we organized the strike, the sanitation workers strike. In conjunction with that was the boycott against Wonder Bread. Remember that? Boycott. I was too young to participate in that, but there was the Wonder Bread boycott. Okay, like people are talking about these ESPN advertisers, maybe contacting them about supporting ESPN. Well, see, I don't watch ESPN. I mean, because I'm not into sports like that. I mean, I may watch, a little tennis or something like that. I watch the Olympics. I used to watch, just say like the playoffs or something, Super Bowl. But I don't even really watch too much of that, and I don't condemn anybody to watch. It's just not my thing. I'm just not really into sports like I used to be. So, but anyway, to each his own, and that's why I feel like if you are against people kneeling, that's your prerogative. You can be against that, but respect the fact that we're kneeling because of systematic oppression and police brutality and the way that we have been continuously disenfranchised, debased, degraded, demeaned, decimated, and desecrated. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. And then this VP, Mike Pence, spending $242,000 just to fly to the game and then protest and leave. That's ridiculous. That's taxpayers' dollars. And then you want to just go and make your little statement? You could have made your statement by tweeting like your buddy Donald Trump, who draft dodging Donald Trump, didn't want to participate, didn't want to serve while he's talking about being a patriot, didn't want to serve because his foot hurt, had heel spurs. Really? Look, really, like the guys in Philly. Really? You didn't want to serve because your foot hurt. My foot hurt. Shoot, my foot was hurting for a long time when that nail shop scraped my foot so darn hard, like I had feet like Shanae or something. My foot hurt for months, but I still had to go to work. And my foot hurt for months. I thought maybe something was wrong. I was getting a little nervous about that. But I still went to work with my hurt foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those who are comfortable with our oppression, black and white, are the first ones to dare us to speak out against it. They're comfortable with it.
I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
How did you know the words to that song? Because you're not that old that you sung that, that you was in segregated schools like I was in Detroit, and that's where I learned the words to that song. So we have always separated ourselves from the system. This was in public school in Detroit, Seal Elementary. Is where I learned the words to the National Black Anthem, also known as Lift Every Voice and Sing.
By James Weldon Johnson. Well, let me tell you this, Scotty, I have always, not always been like as conscious and aware as I am now, of course, because we evolve and grow every day, I hope. But I've been in several different institutions where we did have to stand and sing the Black National Anthem. In fact, I was a member of a church, and it was a African-centered church. And you remember that, Featherlight? We used to sing the national anthem, Black National Anthem, every Sunday, every single Sunday. So, excuse you, Scotty, baby, honey. I know my I know my history and my Black National Anthem, and so that's why I said we should be singing that. Let those players sing that. And break out
I was just wondering though, because I hadn't heard it sung in a public venue. Although I went to church, they didn't sing that. They didn't do no kind of anthem in churches that I went to. But when I was in elementary school in Detroit, this is before they implemented Brown versus the Board of Education. They still hadn't implemented it yet in Michigan, because I was in Michigan at the time. And that was organized. Whenever we had to organize, like anything in an auditorium, a big gathering of the school, and we did not sing Francis Scott Keys. We sung Lift Every Voice. We were taught that song as children. And so I knew you weren't that old, that, you know what I'm saying, you was in elementary school, so how did you learn it? So I learned something from you. Is that other black institutions named in this? Because remember, they said institutions. People who want to set up their own separate institutions are BIE. So that include the African Methodist Zionist Church, where they sung that song, the Black National Anthem. Oh, why you want to set yourself apart from Americans? Why you can't be down with Francis Scott? You know what I'm saying? We've always separated ourselves mentally and spiritually.
Lift every voice and sing. Lift every voice and sing. That's right. Sing that. Start singing that at the games, players. That can be a way to protest. I will tweet that out. Yep. So go ahead on and stand, but just start singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. Okay? How about that? Can you put that on the Black Talk Radio page, Scotty? Maybe we can promote that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look
really
it up.
Be saying we Black identity.
I think Otis had a question or a comment. Otis is on the board, Black Rose.
Oh. Hey, Otis, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say, I'm the elder here. The first 6 years of my education before we integrated here in Yorktown, Virginia, was at James Weldon Johnson School, which all the black people in my county attended. And that is the song we sang every morning. They were preparing us for integration for the seventh grade. So that ended up being our protest song once we integrated into the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade in middle school. Every time we did a black boycott, that is the song we sang to white folks in resistance to them doing anything wrong to any of us. We walked out of classes in mass singing that song. So
really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm 64, so we actually were on the front lines of integration, and it wasn't easy.
I know it wasn't easy at all. Wow. And how old were you around that time when you were walking out of classes? Oh, Otis went back on mute. Because, we were talking about that earlier today, Featherlight, how it was the young children.
It was about 12 or 13.
Okay. If you read the history, or even if you just look at the pictures, you will see that it was so many of the young children that were having to take stand on the front lines of the civil rights movement, because so many of the parents could not protest because they were being fired from their cleaning jobs and washerwoman jobs and sanitation jobs and things like that. They were fired. They were forced to come in, or else their employers would terminate them, just like some of these players are going through right now, being benched or threatening to be cut and benched and all of this nonsense. And so the children had to be the ones that came out and stood on the front lines and were being arrested and loaded into those wagons. So it's just ridiculous that we're still going through this. Now, Jemele Hill, the ESPN host, one of the ESPN hosts, she was suspended for 2 weeks, second violation of the social media guidelines for ESPN because she tweeted a comment regarding Jerry Jones saying that that people shouldn't hold all the NFL players. Well, let me see. Let me just find this. She said, if you strongly reject what Jerry Jones said, then the key is his advertisers. Don't place the burden squarely on the players. Place action on the NFL and the sponsors. So we'd like to hear your thoughts on that also, if anyone wants to share their thoughts on Jemele Hill being suspended. I know I was looking on the Twitters, and Black Twitter was coming out saying that they were in support of Jemele Hill, and I can't think of what her co-host's name is. Scotty, what's the co-host? What's his name? Is his name Michael? Because he refused to come on air, I think both times when she was threatened with suspension, and this last time I believe he didn't come on. Like I said, I don't watch ESPN, but I've been kind of following the story.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't recall his name.
I don't recall his name either, but I think he's been quite supportive of his co-host, which I do commend him on that because, you know, so many people say
Michael Smith.
Black men and women. Michael Smith, that's right. So many people say that black men and women don't support each other. Well, he's supporting the sister. He's supporting her.
Yes.
I know some people have some conflicting feelings about Jemele Hill because I think she retweeted this article about straight black men or the white men of the world today, which I didn't even read that article. I'm just not interested in that. I didn't read it. Maybe I should have, but I just didn't. I didn't read it, so I can't even really comment on that. Never even heard of Jemele Hill until she began tweeting about all of this NFL controversy. So, like I said, I'm not very familiar with her, but she has been placed on suspension for 2 weeks. So now people are saying that they're not going to tune in to ESPN. And from my understanding, what I do know about Jemele Hill is she's supposed to have like over 120-something thousand followers on social media. She had a strong platform, which is why ESPN hired her and moved her to, I believe, the 6 o'clock prime time spot because she is just that good. She has just that many followers. And she actually added to ESPN. So she was a great contributor to ESPN. So, hey, they should be happy to have her. So let's take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about this young girl right here in Houston, India Landry, who has been suspended for not standing during the prayers. Let's take a break. You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network, and we'll come right back to you, Otis, if you have another comment. We'd love to hear it. You're tuned in to Black Talk Radio Network. You are listening to the Mind, Body, and Spirit Radio Show. Are you a Black identity extremist? Yes.
Lift every voice and sing earth, heaven, ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies resound, rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. March on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod through the chastening rock, felt in the days when hope unborn has died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter, out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
Thank you so much for playing that Black National Anthem,
Thank you, Scotty. Oh,
That's the deal. That's the deal. That's the deal. Sing the Black National Anthem in contrast. That's what I promote. That is definitely. Oh my God, they really getting ready to call us some Black identity extremists now. You want to sing the Black National Anthem?
Really ruffle their feathers.
Oh my God! But that's what they can do. They can go ahead on and sing that Black National Anthem. Really, 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 really go ahead on and sing that. India Landry is a 17-year-old high school student right here in Houston. She was suspended for not standing during the Pledge of Allegiance. And she is now, her and her family, they are now suing the principal. She chose to sit during the pledge 200 times, now mind you, 200 times prior to being sent home, according to the lawsuit. So now all of a sudden that that the NFL protest has become so controversial and popular, now her principal has decided to take action. The school is taking action against her. So she was suspended for several days after refusing to stand during the Pledge of Allegiance, and she's filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the school's principal and the school district. On Monday, October 2nd, Winfern High School is the school that the school that she attends. She was sent to the office for texting on her cell phone. You know, these children, they stay texting on their cell phones in the school. And do you know that some of these schools, if they're caught using their phones in class, which I don't know why they're using their phones in class, if the teachers tell you don't use your phone. I know when we were in school, I know a lot of parents now, they say, well, my child has to have a phone because maybe I have to contact her. But, I mean, when we were in school, if our parents had to contact us, they called the school, somebody from the office came to our class and the rule at school to not have the phone on in class because, you know, the teachers say that the students can go online and find answers to tests and all these things. So you're not supposed to have your phone in the classroom. So if they're found with a phone in their classroom in some of these districts, the teachers can take their phone, and, you know, the student has to pay $15 to have their phone returned to them.
Really?
Yeah, they have to pay $15, and of course some of the students they can't pay the $15. But with some of the teachers, and I heard some teachers talking about this just this week, and so they say, well, heck, if you can afford to A, buy the phone, B, afford to pay the phone bill, then C, you can afford to pay the $15 to get your phone back. Anyway, so while she was in the office, the Pledge of Allegiance came on over the school's intercom, and Landry continued sitting. when Principal Martha Strother asked Landry to stand, the 17-year-old declined. According to the complaint, Strother told Landry, well, you're kicked out of here. Strother's secretary also allegedly told Landry, this is not the NFL.
Oh, no!
Right. And so she continued to sit. She was sent home for 3 days. She was sent home, and 3 days later, she and her mother met with Strother. According to the complaint, Strother told them that Landry must stand for the pledge to be back into school. The next day, Friday, October 6th, after KHOU Channel 11 aired a segment on Landry and the controversy, Landry was allowed back in school and told that she could sit during the pledge, according to the lawsuit. Landry's lawsuit is seeking judgment that the students' civil rights were violated. The family is asking for unspecified damages. Students have a First Amendment right to speak or not to speak, and choose to stand for the pledge is a form of expression, so the government cannot force you to express yourself when you don't want to, according to Landry's attorney, Randy Kalian. And that's that.
Yeah.
Let me give my hand clap. Let me give my hand clap to the parents for getting a lawyer, okay, and filing the lawsuit, because that's what we have to do. That is what we have to do. Stand up and fight them with their own laws. Right. Lift every voice and sing. That's right. Yes. That's right.
Use their own weapons against them. There you go. This is what your law says.
That's right. Let's see. I think we have. Let's see. Otis, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I was going to say that one thing we have to learn as a people is when someone is bold enough to stand and speak for us, we need to give them support. Michael Wilborn is another one of the commentators on ESPN. He finally came forward. He's a co-host of one of the programs called Pardon the Interruption. He finally came forward, and this is his quote. The word that comes to mind, and I don't care who doesn't like me using it, is plantation. Mr. Wilburn said on Monday's show, the players are here to serve me. But he said, this is what he said about Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones sounds like he's saying, the players are here to serve me. They will do what I want them to do. No matter how much I pay them, they are not equal to me. That's what this says to me. Wilburn is one of the first to really come forward and stand in support of Jamil. And the rest of them are going to have to end up speaking up. And I can tell you, Shannon Sharp will probably be one that does stand for her, because we're at a point now, not only they're attacking us on every front, they're trying to ignore what Kaepernick stood for and change it to disrespect of the flag, when the fact is he's talking about extrajudicial murder of black men and women in the street by slave catchers. Right. And we can't afford to let them take that over and make it be about the flag, because the truth is, from Crispus Attucks on through the Civil War, we've given black lives before they ever fought their Civil War. So our blood, when they run around talking in the alt-right about blood and soil, there is no more blood in this country than what black people have given. We gave and have survived all of what they put out for us. So now is not the time to turn back. I'm happy to see that this new generation is finding out tolerance is not inclusion. And that's all that white folks have done with us for the last 30 or 40 years, is tolerate us. And now it's getting to the point they're going to have to live with us, or like Fannie Lou Hamer says, if we can't enjoy it with you, then nobody gets to have it.
There you go.
Lift every voice and sing. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. I totally agree with that. Thank you for sharing your comments and that information. Indeed. Let's see. Caller from 719, do you have a question or a comment for us?
A little bit of both. How you ladies doing this afternoon or this evening in y'all case? Okay.
I'm well.
Great.
I want to say I do have to tell y'all I really enjoy y'all show. Y'all make me sit back and relax, and I like that.
Oh, great.
Did y'all hear about the Tennessee man that was fired? He was a kickboxing coach. He was fired because he was captured on camera for not standing for the national anthem.
Wow. I didn't hear about that in Tennessee.
In Tennessee, his name is Tyler Chancellor. They reported this on Fox 17, which would be in Tennessee.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yes.
I'll have to look that up.
He was fired for not standing for the national anthem. He was captured on camera in the crowd. So I thought I'd just throw that out there.
So he was fired from his job. So you're saying that like he was actually like just in the audience. So he wasn't spectator. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. So he was a spectator. So you mean to tell me someone tracked him down, found out where he was employed, and contacted his employer, and then as a consequence he was terminated because he didn't stand? Wow. He was a spectator?
I can't say anybody tracked him down. I'll just say that the way it's being reported, he was seen on TV in a footage of a game, and in that, I'll say that he obviously was spotted by somebody that was familiar with him, and they took it to the next step and took him out of his employment. So that's just one of those offshoots of this problem that we're dealing with that y'all talking about. Something else I wanted to say is about this. I appreciate Colin Kaepernick, but here's how I feel about this in the sense of the whole kneeling thing. Colin Kaepernick, he deserves his own props. The other guys, I challenge them. I don't see them as guys that are serious, because one thing that I would have to say, I'm not trying to say I'm an example of it, but I would hope to be. If they really meant what Colin Kaepernick meant, Colin Kaepernick was benched. He didn't get to play. He's not going to get – he wasn't hired by another team.
Right. So
he said, I'm willing to give up all these millions to prove my point or to stand on what I feel. Now, these guys locking arms with their coaches, which is kind of crazy. To come about this Sunday, Dallas was one of my homegrown teams. I'm from the South. I'm from Oklahoma City. We had to accept the Cowboys because we didn't have a pro team for the football. But I mean, if you're gonna take that stance at that point, are you willing to give up that money? And like Scotty be saying, what is them butter biscuits worth? And this is where this is where people show their true character and how much they're really worth. Because if them men meant something about that whole movement, they wouldn't be kneeling. They just wouldn't come to work. It's like you calling off for a day to say, well, my child is sick. It doesn't matter what the employee say. You're adamant that I'm not coming in. My child is sick. So if you got to fire me or whatever, see, we'll do that for ourselves, for our own selfish reasons.
Yeah.
But we ain't looking at that when it comes down to the real mission. The real mission is, even if you're making $50 million a year, do you even need $50 million a year? And that's something them fellas got to think about. I'm not calling nobody out. I'm not trying to call them no names. I'm just saying, if it's really real, then that's where white folks have shown better than us. They'll cut off their nose to spite everything.
It will.
And we haven't shown that type of behavior yet. Our posture is not there yet. So I appreciate y'all having these type of conversations because they do mean a lot. And I'm going to keep – I would appreciate it if we all got on the hashtag is tell Eminem stand up for us and shed blood. Because if he can go on BET and give up his little message that totally hijacked the whole movement, in front of black people in the black audience, then he should be willing to go on the front line before any of us and give up the first blood. That's how I feel. Thank you, ladies.
All right.
Amen.
Thank you for sharing your comment. I did try to watch that video of Eminem doing his little freestyle in the garage and all of that, and I'm just not a fan of Eminem. It was very difficult for me to watch that, but I was just trying to watch it just so that I could be aware of what he shared since it was trending. I really don't have any comments about Eminem and his little freestyle video about all of this that's going on. I just really don't. But you know, and this is in reference to your comments, caller. So I think what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is some of these people that began to kneel like a week or two ago, they should have been kneeling prior to this. And if that's the case, I agree with you. And when I look at some of the pictures and I see, you know, some people that kneel, and then you have these others that, you know, may stand around him and putting their arm on him. What's that all about? Nigga, excuse me, y'all. I didn't mean to say nigga. Y'all know how I get. Y'all know. You know how I get. I just keep it real. But brother, get on your knee with him. You put your man. If I was the one that was kneeling, then you're gonna sit here and put your arm on me. No, get your hand off of me, or either you get down here right next to me.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But Miss Black Rose, that's what I'm saying. It ain't, and I'm gonna be the first to say it for myself. I don't know if I'm ready to be a sacrificial lamb, but obviously being on this radio station and before this radio station, I felt this way. To even speak about this as we're learning about the BIE, if you just even say, hey, man, I feel for black people, you're enemy. So then, therefore, I'm already an enemy. Okay? So I don't even need to talk about that no more. But what you said is right. Yeah, I feel like, why this week? But I also feel even deeper. This is something them guys, when Donald Trump said he was grabbing women by the crotch and then tried to play it off by saying this is locker room talk. Well, you know, I'm a former athlete. I don't remember talking like that about women. So I don't know what locker room Donald Trump is in. He ain't in the one I'm in. But I don't have the type of money he has either. Okay? So what I'm saying is them guys got to start recognizing that. Jerry Jones don't even come and talk. Probably don't even call them unless they don't show up for work. See, that's what I'm saying. You got to really weigh your situation and say, hey, Jerry Jones, I ain't never even saw you outside of telling me I need to be on the field practicing and be there on time and make some money for you. That's it.
Right.
We don't look at that. And the reason we don't look at it because we keep getting presented these images of Heisman trophies. We get the Super Bowl. I don't even know what half that stuff means, and I played football. I'm gonna just be honest with you. So there's my honesty. But you know, I mean, them guys, like you're singing the Negro National Anthem. I learned that song in 1988 at Langston University in Oklahoma. I'm from Oklahoma.
I don't remember them calling it the Negro National Anthem, though.
That's what they called it there, Scotty.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you what they called it anywhere else. Yeah,
that's
I'm
what
going to tell you what they called it.
I have heard it called the Negro National Anthem.
That's what it was called in Oklahoma. So that's what I'm saying. That's how we get co-opted, and that's what these conversations should be about. That's why them guys are kneeling with their slave master. Because I wouldn't have never sat down with Jerry Jones. I wouldn't even been on the field. That's what Walter Beecher III was about. He made it very clear. I don't even need to go out on the field because I don't acknowledge it. I won't even associate it. So why should I come out there while y'all doing it? To bring attention to myself. So if these guys really want to be seen in a light that says that they want to help, this is a time to say, I'm willing to give up my money and anything else that go with it.
That's kind of the extreme, though, don't you think, though?
I agree. I agree with that young man 100%. I hate to bulge in, but you must know where Guthrie, Oklahoma is. That's where my only son lives now, and he actually went to Langston University for a little while. But I want to tell you,
I'm from Oklahoma. I'm from Spencer, Oklahoma, Otis. That's an all-black agricultural town. I want to say this to everybody so y'all know. Tulsa, Oklahoma is not the only Black Wall Street. That's the propaganda. If you look up the history of Oklahoma as a whole, there were 12 all-black cities settled. Vernon, Oklahoma, my family settled it with AME Episcopal Pastor Vernon. And my grandfather's name was L.T. Woodard. They founded Vernon, Oklahoma, and built it. The first church there and created the whole city. Wow. This is what I found in my tracing down my background. But Oklahoma, there's 12 all-black cities. Only 9 remain today. And if you look at the model of all those cities, Bowley, Guthrie, as Otis just mentioned, Oklahoma City itself, and a lot of people don't know this, that Oklahoma itself is still divided by 2 territories. You have the Oklahoma Territory and you got the Indian Territory. My family is from the Creek Nation. They're not even Creek, they're Coosa or Khoisan. And what you'll find out if you go look into those histories of those people, they all had that same model. Tulsa just happened to be what it was because it was more commercial.
And the other, yes.
That's it. But you can find all that oil up and down those cities that they came after they migrated them into those areas. They came 20 years later and said, you got to move again. That's how we ended up over in Guthrie, Langston, Oklahoma City. That's how we got over there. We didn't choose to go there. We were forced over there from a second land run. In Oklahoma, they teach you the land run, which is called the Sooners. That's where the Oklahoma Sooners whole theme comes from.
Yes.
It's about occupying space. They made us, as kids, do the Oklahoma land run, glorifying settlers.
Well,
I'll mute my line.
I think what you're seeing now is the black people that didn't stand up with Kaepernick thought that they could just skirt the issue, and now they're finding that the owners are going further. They're going to be forced to take a stand. There's no way around it now because the owners are trying to still keep it focused on the flag, and that's not going to work. It's going to come to a head because they're going to end up. Matter of fact, I want to say it, Scotty, before you get it. You're in the city who has a preeminent man that just finished putting out a video about this. Gerald Horn, Professor Gerald Horn at the University of Houston is a professor. Mm-hmm. Yes, and he just finished putting out a video saying that Jamila Hill should be able to find some prominent lawyer that can help her, because the biggest hindrance to her right now is the fact that this country, we as black people, have allowed GOP governors to turn most of their states into right-to-work states, which means that the government cannot interfere with what a private business is doing. But what's happening is once that private business starts usurping your constitutional rights, all of a sudden they've crossed into a legal boundary.
She has a contract, just like the NFL players have a contract. And on every job that I work on, when I was training new employees, when I was in supervisor positions, especially if I was black, I tell them, read the SOP, the standard operating procedures, the employee's handbook, because they give you that when they hire you, and they tell you basically what you can and cannot do, your conduct on the job. Apparently, ESPN has a social media clause in its contract with her. So I don't know what it says or the legalities of that. So I would consult an attorney because, again, she ain't verified as no ESPN let me put it this way. She is on her personal account tweeting. She is not on the ESPN account tweeting. So, again, it depends on the language of her contract. And to Ramon, I feel what you're saying, but I would not walk away from my contract that I have in the NFL making multi-millions of dollars, because I don't see that in the long term doing anything, because they'll find somebody else that's just waiting to take their place. So, but if I was to protest, I would protest by not being seen, not seen taking the knee.
But Scotty, that's what I'm saying,
or whatever.
But hold on though, if you don't mind me saying this, early on Tiye Free show, didn't one of the men point out there ain't nothing in the NFL clause or
right now, but they're working on changing
that would
that.
Commit those guys to having to stand up for anything, let alone a flag.
But
so
but you're saying walk away from millions. That's all I'm talking about. Is walking away. No, I'm not quitting my job. I can't afford to. I know they're making multi-million dollars, but if they have signed contracts, they on the hook and they owe those people money. And they can be all put into slavery.
And you know what? And that's my question too. Should they forfeit their millions of dollars that they use to take care of their families? I mean, because we can sit here. I mean, I can sit here and say, "Oh, forget that," but I don't have any children that I have to take care of. I don't have this multi-million-dollar contract that was my dream as a child to become an NFL player. So I know that they have a dilemma. So I'm glad that you brothers are speaking about this, because that is a dilemma that they have to sit down and talk with their wives and families about. And I wonder, what is that conversation like at the dinner table?
Do what Colin doing now, Black Rose. Fund those. This is what the Carolina Panthers said they was going to do, because Jerry Richardson told them that they wasn't down for that. And then they was like, hold up, that sound like you trying to make me out to be a slave. So Cam Newton and the other captain said that, hey, we got to have a meeting with this, because you can't tell us what we ain't going to do. So all the players stuck together. And so they know how he feels. So they didn't take a knee. But what the players said that they was going, and Julius Peppers stood alone and stayed in the locker room. See, they could do that too. But they said, we're going to start funneling money to these social justice organizations. So let's hope that don't mean Black Lives Matter. Or let's hope that mean Black Talk Media Project. Let's hope that means some of these well-deserving grassroots organizations out there.
Hold on, bro. Let me say this, man. Here, this is what I got to say. As a personal testimony, this is my own, okay? When we make these type of choices, here's where my logic kicks in. If we love to use those statements that Harriet Tubman used when saying, I could have freed many more slaves if they had known it. I mean, okay, look.
They not slaves,
man, though.
They not slaves.
Here's what I'm saying. I understand that. They not. I'm not trying to put them in the slave category. But here's what I'm saying. That's where they get that's where they get to be held even greater for responsibility. I don't really care that you make so many millions of dollars and that you decided to live a lifestyle that would require that you have to make that type of money, because you come from a background that never even had that type of privilege. So for you to go get into it, that's a self-choice. But if you wake up one day and realize what I'm doing is not right, so that means if I'm investing into slavery or anything else, we can't be making distinctions. We're going to have to go with the full picture.
But them playing football, the NFL, I don't think has any of their uniforms being made in prison labor. Let's do the research. Let's try to connect the NFL to slavery and point that out, modern-day slavery.
By people, but I'm saying rubber, plastic, and all that material that go on them NFL players' backs is made by slave
But that's labor. All of us then. That's all of us. Let's all just quit our jobs and walk away, break these contracts.
Well, Scotty, that's what we're talking about. That's what I'm saying. What is it going to take for us to realize this is real war? This ain't playtime.
Yeah, but quitting our jobs.
And I've heard the first time I heard this saying, I heard it on this show. I heard somebody say, the only thing black people are serious about is not being serious. And that resonated with me.
Well, okay. I'd like to interject something, gentlemen. The situation is not going to go away. I just stuck something in the chat room so that Black Rose could see. I heard a statement, and just 4 hours ago, this was posted. The executive director, DeMaurice Smith, who is in charge of the National Football Players Association, he met with Goodell once they came up with this proposal about changing the rules. because the Players Association contract with the NFL runs out, I believe, at the end.
And they can go on strike. So that's why I'm saying I'm not quitting my job. That's a very powerful union with
let me
lots of
tell
money.
you what he done. Once Goodell made his statement trying to go along with Trump, DeMaurice Smith actually came out on his Twitter account and tweeted. So now he's gotten with, just in the last 4 hours, this has been put on. They're going to end up in the league meeting. Normally, the Players Association doesn't go to the owners' meeting, but now next week in a planned meeting, they're going to meet because DeMaurice Smith said there is no way Goodell can unilaterally change anything. They have an existing contract.
Exactly. These people got more power, and that's what I'm saying. We can't be reactionary and acting in the emotions because we need, like even in the abolitionist movement, you had these rich, wealthy people who you would have never knew was abolitionists. They were called the Secret Six, and they were funding the abolitionists, the John Browns, and the other stuff. So we have Harry Belafonte as an example, and other black celebrities who funded the movements back then. Diane Carroll. And so that's what all I'm saying, Ramon, is I think that's unreasonable for me to put that kind of pressure on their shoulders, or it's all on them. That's not proving anything. They have a contract. It would be more beneficial for them to let their lawyers and express their power through that union power. They have a union, and it ain't like they ain't never went on strike before. So if they push come to shove, we need our young people to see them fighting on the job.
Basically, what you're saying, Scotty, is they need to take the rational approach to an irrational action by the slaveholders, because that's what gets you through. Being irrational will get them all wiped out and replaced with the next crop that are already in a development league. They need to stand with the rational legal recourse and make the NFL back down. You can't take my civil and constitutional rights over as a product that we're selling to the public.
So, Otis and Scotty, would this be a good tactic, Black Rose Feather Light? Would this be a tactic we should promote? If they ain't, okay, I agree. Maybe they shouldn't have to give it all up. But maybe they should just not win. How about that?
Well, I think keeping your job and keeping your integrity is one and the same. They can stay on that job and demand the right, the constitutional
make them fire
right
me. That's always been my attitude, is make them fire me, because then I can have a lawsuit or what have you.
That's right.
But also, one last thing, ladies, I'm sorry that the male's been dominating this conversation about football, and I'm going to shut up here.
We really wanted to hear from the males, because
I really did. I did.
But this last thing,
I'm so glad that you guys are
let's point this out to Jerry Jones, which was pointed out by Thomas, one of our New York listeners of Black Talk Radio, who said that, hey, they took $1 billion of tax dollars and built that stadium down there in Texas. That's public funds. So you really ain't running. What kind of business is you running? Is you a private entity? Why are y'all taking wealth? That's what do the conservatives always call that? The transference of wealth, redistribution of wealth.
Right.
Like it's, we taking it from the wealthy and giving it to the poor. When what's happening is the poor been building these $1 billion stadiums. The Charlotte just upgraded their stadium. That's public money.
And then on top of that, Scotty, so many black people have been gentrified and displaced when they build these stadiums, when they displace a lot of these communities to plop these stadiums down in cities. Hey, let's go with Detroit. Okay, the Detroit, I think it's the Detroit Lions Stadium, the commercial stadium. What is that? The stadium where one of those Miami teams plopped that stadium down right there near, what's that black town? Overtown. Okay, so so a lot of these stadiums, not only are the taxpayers' dollars used for these stadiums, but people are displaced. Now, guys, we got to take a quick break because Scott is probably like, hey, Black Rose, we're supposed to be taking a break. So let's take our break. I love this conversation. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to share a little bit. I'm actually going to cut a little bit of our African spirit segment just so that we can go ahead on and let Feather Light speak, and then we can get back into this conversation because it's such a hot conversation. So let's take a break. You're tuned in to the Mind, Body, and Spirit Radio Show. Lift every voice and sing. That's what I'm going to start saying at the end of everything. Lift every voice and sing. All right, we'll be right back.
Black Talk Radio, your choice for digital black radio. New black media for the new millennium.
All right, we're back here at the Mind, Body, and Spirit Radio Show, and it is time for our African Spirit segment, and tonight we are honoring Queen Tiye, Nubian Queen of Kemet, 1415, 1340 BC. Black, beautiful, gorgeous Queen Tiye is regarded as one of the most influential queens ever to rule Kemet. According to some scholars, Tiye's father was Yua, a provincial priest from Inkerman, and her mother was Tijua, a servant of the Queen Mother, Mtimwa. Her parents' names, some claim, are not Egyptian, but in fact Nubian. Scholars who have noted Tiye's unusual role in the affairs of state point to the Nubian custom of female rulers. She was a queen of the 18th dynasty, wife of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, mother of Akhenaten, and grandmother of both Tukhenaten, we know him as King Tut, and Ankhesenamun. She exerted an enormous influence at the courts of both her husband and son, and is known to have communicated directly with rulers of foreign nations. She was given the title of Great Royal Wife and acted upon it following the end of her husband's reign. It was Tiye who held sway over Kemet during the reign of her three sons, Amenhotep IV, Akhenaten, and the famous child king Tut and Ankh-Amen, King Tut. For nearly half a century, Tiye governed Kemet, regulated her trade, and protected her borders. Tiye was a significant force at court, and during this time she was believed to be the standard of beauty in the ancient world. King Tut. And let's see, Otis, you shared, let me get back to this. You said that Jerry Jones Stadium displaced an old black neighborhood in Arlington, Texas. Thank you for sharing that. An old black neighborhood in Arlington, Texas.
Yes.
See, so many people have been displaced by these stadiums, Otis. Thank you. You have a comment about that?
What I was going to say to you is Jerry Jones is digging up some dirt that's going to come back to haunt him. He already had his personal foibles with the ride in the elevator with the two young white girls. Gerald Horne brought that up too, saying that for somebody talking about morality, he's got enough personal dirt of his own. And then the part that I'm telling you, they had a black mayor. I lived in Dallas at the time, was doing HUD projects, he actually kind of got caught slipping some money to a black mayor pro tem that was mayor of Arlington at the time, and some kind of way he advanced him some money for one of his kids to go to college and all of that to get the residents to go for it. And then they found out what was happening is the Cowboys had already done a public-private ownership deal that George Bush was also, as governor at that time, was tied into, and they condemned those people's homes. That's how that new Cowboys Stadium got built. Wow. So he's got dirt of his own. He can't afford to go too far because he's going to rattle some cages with a gentleman there that's been at Dallas for a long time. John Wiley Price is an advocate that I happen to know when he was with South Dallas, and he's on the city council right now in Dallas. So he's opening up a whole can of worms that's going to bring back some bad publicity on the Cowboy organization.
That's usually what happens when you start trying to speak out on something and you're in opposition to righteousness. It comes back. It will come back. And like you said, I guarantee that this will come out or something will come out. It will come back to bite him. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to share this quickly, and I want to hear what people think about this. You know, some people, when we start speaking about the protests and the kneeling, and then it's always this deflection with some people. They'll say, well, what about all the Chicago killings? Black people, they have this black-on-black crime, and what are you doing about that, and why don't you focus on that? My retort to that is, and I want to hear if anybody wants to share, Scotty, you may have something to share about this. My retort to it is people want to talk about one little specific area. It's not even the entirety of Chicago. It's a specific area, and we could go on, and we can have a whole show about what's going on in Chicago with the killings and everything. Even Bobby Dick Gregory spoke about that. There was a city councilwoman that spoke about that. So there are a lot of different angles to that. But in reference to the deflection, when people try to bring up the Chicago killings, my retort to that would be for us to start speaking about, well, what about all of this opioid addiction that you have in New Hampshire, in Maine, in New Jersey, in West Virginia, all of these different places where you have these high rates of white people overdosing on this fentanyl, this heroin, and all of these opioid drugs. Number one, it's illegal for you to buy and ingest this heroin. Number two, you're using these syringes, which is illegal. You're not supposed to have these syringes. And number three, these people are not working. They're causing a strain on the budget. They're causing a strain on the civil service people like the firemen, the paramedics, the coroners. You have coroners all across the country that are overwhelmed because they cannot perform the autopsies on these people that are coming in from ODing daily. You have people that are in certain counties. You have people that are ODing twice a day. Two people, 2 to 3 people a day that are ODing. And then you have some of these people, they OD, then they bring them back with this naloxone, Narcan, and then they turn around, go to the hospital, come right back home, and get high again. And then the paramedics have to come right back out to that same house later on that evening. So these people are not working. They're prostituting themselves. Yes, they are. They're prostituting themselves. All you got to do is put stealing. They're stealing, all types of theft, robberies, and all of this. And this is not being reported as the crack epidemic was being shown to us over the 10 o'clock news during the 80s. They're not showing, well, I don't know, because I don't even watch the news stations on TV. So people, that's why I want to ask people, are you seeing this? Because I don't see it on YouTube. I don't see it when I do pull up my news reports. I don't see what's his name, John Boy, or whoever, Jerry, being arrested because he robbed his store. Because that's what's happening. I watch these opioid videos all night long sometimes. I have over 100 of them saved in a YouTube playlist, and I'm documenting how these people are so addicted and they are dying. They're putting a strain on the budget, so much of a strain on the budget that you have some city council people that are saying, I don't want this naloxone here. I don't want these people coming to my county ODing because they're causing too much of a strain, so much
Black
of a strain
Rose,
that you have these coroners that are now having to quit their jobs because they're overworked, and not only that, they're losing their accreditation because it's only a certain amount of autopsies that they're supposed to be able to perform, and when they exceed that limit, then they lose their accreditation because they're being overworked, and they're having to purchase these freezers to store these bodies because they cannot perform the autopsies in the proper amount of time.
To answer your question, Black Rose, no, I haven't heard it reported in those terms. I have not heard Donald Trump go to Iowa and say, white people, y'all throwing our budget out of whack.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Instead, what they're doing is advocating that the drug dealers receive these penalties and are arrested. Well, okay, that's fine. Arrest them, but you need to also arrest these people that are using the drugs. And those are my thoughts on that. So when they start telling us about Chicago killings, then again, just like we're gonna come back with our lift every voice and sing, come back on them with that opioid addiction crap, because that's what's happening. They're stealing. They're prostituting themselves. They're causing a strain on the budget. They want to use my tax dollars to fund Narcan for these people that have a death sentence. I don't want my paramedics that could be coming to my house to save me when I'm having some type of real emergency versus going over to the next person's house because this damn fool want to sit up here and keep getting high because he's just depressed about his life. Hell, I get depressed about my life, but I'm not sitting up here going around here constantly ODing and taking up the time from the paramedics coming to my house because I got too high in my bathroom, and now you need to come and save me, and you can't go save the little old lady that fell down in her tub, because that's what's happening. Right.
Well, Sister Rose, you're gonna really have to put on a seatbelt for this one. NPR NewsHour just had a program this evening I watched before we went on air, showing that up in Massachusetts, they're actually trying to push a program that a doctor started for safe places to shoot up. The acronym for it is SPOT. They actually had a medical doctor who has now the prototype 9-bed facility that will allow the people to come in and shoot up safely and be monitored by nurses so they can treat them before they die. I'm not lying to you.
Are you serious?
Go to NPR today.
They're doing that in D.C. also.
It's on, and I'm telling you. So, and that is a prelude to getting government money so that their children don't continue to die. Now, my problem is just what you've been bringing up. I want to know why the black congressmen all through Chicago and Jesse Jackson and Arnie Duncan from and Rahm Emanuel, how come they haven't had any federal money infused into Chicago to stop the deaths? How come they're still letting these illegal firearms just show up in alleys, and you got young kids on Facebook, on YouTube, showing boxes of guns that show up with ammo, and nobody can figure out where they come from? I believe the police unions are doing it just like they found the illegal ones in Baltimore shaking people down. I believe the police are supplying the guns to keep their jobs.
Well, listen, let me say this in response to what you're saying, Otis. You're exactly right, because being from Memphis, I remember when guys used to talk about how the trains would stop right there on the tracks in the hood, and they would have guns, clothes, all kinds of things for these people to capture and put it back on the streets and sell it. So just like
I don't believe those kids are lying.
No, they're not lying. They're not. And so the thing about it is, like what you're saying is, these guns, and Otis, you may remember this case when some FBI agents, they claim they went to some restaurant like Waffle House to eat, and they left the van unlocked, and then, oops, somebody stole all the guns.
Yes.
Give me a break. And that continues to happen, because there was a story, I think that's the one that you're referencing, in Baltimore when the guns were, all of a sudden stolen.
Yes.
So, this happens. This happens. So these guns, like we used to say, we don't make heroin in our neighborhoods. You can't grow any heroin in Chicago. You can't. Black people don't own any gun manufacturing companies in Chicago. So how are these guns making it into the streets? And now Baba D. Gregory used to talk about how could it be something in the water? There was somebody that was speaking about the hot chip fries. They had these little hot fries. This was years ago. People were talking about those hot chips, hot fries or something like that was really popular in Chicago. And people were saying, is it something, and it may sound a little strange to people, but some people were saying, is there something in these hot fries, some kind of chemical, these towers that all of a sudden started popping up in black neighborhoods? Are these towers emitting something that's causing people to become dysfunctional and want to go just kill people? And is it really black people killing black people? Is it something else? So there have been numerous. There was a councilwoman that spoke about this. The people in her district were saying that what they're reporting about black people going around shooting is not all black people. You have some of these people, other people that are going around killing. They're the ones that are actually committing these shootings. It's not just these black gangs, because from my understanding, I never did actually go back and research this, and I'm going to be quiet so Further Light can share her love the body and breathing. But there were people that were saying that with some of these shootings in Chicago, that there were not all the gang members that were doing this. However, when these people are shot and killed and it's called a gang killing, then the state has the right to take those organs, and they can then have those organs. And you know what they do? They end up putting them on the black market and selling those organs. So it's a lot going on with these Chicago killings. And I'm of one, I don't know what the deal is. I really, really don't, because I have not researched it thoroughly. But I do feel like that there needs to be more research done, because if it is, even if it is that the fact that these people are just going around shooting and killing each other like that, then why? What is the problem? Is it because of the disenfranchisement, because of lack of employment opportunities? And I was going to talk.
Or is it Mexican cartels, drug cartels that the DEA cut deals with that's on public record, even in courts there in Chicago, with the prosecution of the cartel? What was the guy named Guzman that they arrested him, but he set up the Sinaloa cartel? And this is on record. And the largest newspaper in Mexico published a series of reports of how the DEA had deals to allow them to smuggle drugs through a corridor all the way up to Chicago, and left them alone as long as they gave them reliable information to bust other cartels. That's a sweet deal. And so I believe that some of them Mexicans is killing people, cartel members, that not Mexicans, because I'm not saying they're all Mexican, you know what I'm saying, but the ones associated with that cartel.
That's true. And then just really quickly, remember when there were those reports of people that had black masks? They actually had some masks that were, black-face masks, and they were wearing these masks, and so it looked like it was a black person shooting, but it was actually a white guy that had on masks. So if it's one person, it could be another 100 of them. And we have to pick back up. I think we need to have a part 2 on this show, because there was a lot that I didn't get a chance to tie in. I want to tie in this redlining to Chicago. So we're going to let Feather Light go ahead on and give us our breathing, so we can
everybody.
It down a little bit.
This has been a very, very interesting conversation, and it needs to be. We need to have conversations like this. So let's take a deep breath. Exhale. Again, through your nose, and exhale through your mouth. Take your shoulders, lift your shoulders up to your ears, drop them. This is where we keep a lot of tension in our shoulders and give them a good shake. Okay. In fact, let's just shake the whole body. shaking your body is the best way to relieve stress. So just bounce and shake. Bounce on your heels and just shake your body. Shake your arms, shake your hands, shake your fingers, shake your butt. Just shake your whole body. And the second best way to relieve stress is to smile. I know it's a little difficult, but if you smile, you can't be stressed. I'm so stressed. It's not possible. Just shake your body. Shake, 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 shake it all off. Okay, now take another deep inhale, and this time raise your arms up over your head, and then slowly bring them down. Next week, we're going to work with our chi. This week, we'll just do a mini version. Bring your hands up over your head, and grab some energy, good energy. Bring it down slowly over your crown, over your face, over your shoulders, your chest, torso, your hips, and bring it down to your feet. Okay? Now, drop your right ear to your right shoulder and tuck in your chin just slightly. Okay, and then lift your head up and then bring it back down. Lift it up and bring it back down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. When you head back to the center, drop your left ear to your left shoulder. Tuck your chin in slightly. Lift your head up and bring it back down. Inhale up. Exhale back. Inhale up. Exhale down. Put both of your hands on your lower abdomen. This is our energy center. Men, your right hand goes over your left hand. Your palms are facing your belly. Women, put your left hand over your right hand. Take a deep inhale and fill your belly with air. And your belly should go out when you inhale and go in when you exhale. When you exhale, exhale fully because you are exhaling toxins out of your body. One more time. Inhale. Inhale 4. Hold. Exhale 6. 4, 5. This time when you exhale, exhale through your mouth. Inhale 4 through your nose. Hold 3 and exhale 6. Ready? Inhale. Hold. And lastly, you're going to bend your knees slightly, drop your hands to your side, and then raise your hands up and raise up, stand up, raise your hands up over your head, lift up, lift your head up, take a deep breath, gather some good chi, energy, and then slowly, very, very slowly, bring it down over the face. Give yourself a good chi shower all over your body. And one more time. Thank you. And we will continue this conversation next week. Thank you for joining us. Namaste.
Namaste. And remember to lift every voice and sing. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. Peace and good night. Lift every voice and sing.
Bye.